Hi, Charmaine. Did you listen to the Brickyard Zoom of the board?
No, I didn't. I've been busy today.
Doing something useful rather than listening to Zooms. That's good.
Well, I don't know what happened there.
They decided that a bunch of things to do with water were more important than a bunch of other things and sort of got a little prioritizing done. And they aren't meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hi. Charmaine, question for you.
Yeah.
How many of these meetings have you attended?
I don't have a number, a couple of years worth.
Okay. You know everything, so I'm always impressed.
I don't know all that much, really.
Well, on this side, it looks like you're the fountain of knowledge and wisdom there. So
No, no. I am the secretary of LUDRC, so I am writing everything down. Maybe
yes.
some of it gets in my head while I write it.
I like your summaries.
Oh, good. Thanks. So we don't have Rod, is that right?
That's how I'm seeing it, yeah.
I'm busy copying everybody's names, so I'll have it for the minutes.
Has anyone tried to reach Rod?
I don't know.
I haven't. All I've got is email stuff for him, not a phone number.
Well, I can give him a call. Sometimes we have to do that.
Yeah. No.
Thank you so much.
No.
They are connecting, so we should see them
Yep.
pop in here any minute.
Yeah, he just arrived twice. So I don't know
Ah.
what that means, but at least he's here.
Oh, there he is.
Yay,
There he is.
welcome, Rod.
Mhm.
Dimly lit.
Are you on, Rod? Can you hear us?
Yeah, you
You're
can hear-
muted. You're muted. Can you hear us now, Rod?
So it appears Rod has left and is going to try to log back in again, I think, I hope.
Okay.
I still see them.
Yeah, well,
In the
he
corner.
was logged in twice on my screen, and now I just see one of them has logged off, but I don't see the other one. But that doesn't mean he's not here. It's just I can't see him.
And his image is frozen.
Oh,
on
that's
my-
a leftover, you think?
Yeah. Hi.
We can hear you speaking to us, and we can't hear it. You obviously can't hear Rod. He's going to stop and try to rejoin the thing again. Is that correct, Rod? And he's asking someone to start the meeting. until he can get in there.
Right, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Okay. All right, I'm gonna put you on speaker, Bonnie. Then I can hear you, okay? Okay, just a minute. Okay, so we all have computer problems from time to time. So Rod's a pretty smart guy. He's gonna get it figured out. Something wrong with, just a minute. Yeah,
Rod, I think Rod is starting to. He's disconnecting and then he's going to try to enter again.
One of my software providers says websites that will not support stuff. I think that was the issue.
So this software won't support something, is what they said.
okay.
The computer. But if you guys start, and just so that people aren't kept waiting.
Right. Who would be the first speaker then?
Can you see that, Ron? Who would be the first speaker?
No, I don't see anything right now, but I can figure it out. Why don't we have Cesar tell us where he stands on the contract? Or Vivian.
Did you hear that?
Just received an email from Cesar about half an hour ago saying that they have not given a new contract to Coastline.
Okay,
So maybe
They've allowed them.
So maybe they can give a report. Maybe Vivian can report what Cesar has said
okay,
for now.
okay,
Okay?
okay, thanks. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. Okay, so Vivian, are you available? Are you here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
uh,
so while they're trying to get in, they were wondering if you could give an update on the contract
Yeah.
or what is the latest going on? Could you give us an update and I'll take notes?
Sure. I've been asking over and over and over again what the status of the contract is. And I just got this a little after 5 o'clock this evening.
Would you mind, excuse me, but would you mind just introducing yourself? Are you a neighbor? Are you a resident? Or what's your,
I'm a neighbor on
what's
Western
your
Drive.
stake in the game here?
I'm a homeowner on
Thank
Western
you.
Drive.
Okay,
Okay. So he wrote back to me. I inquired. The contract time was extended due to bad weather at the beginning of the year. So giving them the time they need to complete what they were supposed to do by June 30th. The actual agreement was not extended. I've communicated with PW, I assume is Public Works, that I would advocate to CC, City Council, to not approve an extension of the contract. What we could request after this contract is to have a peer review of the work performed.
so do you know at what stage they are in the work? What percentage has been done?
I mean, we're starting so in the middle of things. I don't know what the contract is for. This is the first I've heard about this. I think we need somebody to back off and say what is proposed to be done.
Yeah, this is Rod. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Hey, we can.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, so the contract was written in March of 2022. It was supposed to be done by June of 2023. What Cesar told Vivian today, and I was copied, was that because of weather delays, they extended that contract. That was the phase one preliminary evaluation. and it wasn't final design or anything else. And if I can share the contract with you, but it's 50 pages long, but the bottom line is, it essentially said they're just going to scope what's there. One of the main issues that I've taken up, and Norm and I have exchanged emails on this, is their state, Norm Hanches. And their statement has been that you can't replace or repair the sewer line in the location it's in. It's feasibly unavailable and environmentally not allowed. That is wrong.
Rod?
Yes.
Just to back up a little, is everybody clear on the fact why this contract was initially
No.
awarded
Somebody
to
needs to start at the
Coastland
beginning.
and what their role is and what they promised to do, what they were paid to do?
There was a city council hearing that essentially said that no one else is qualified to do this work other than Coastline. And so they got an exclusive contract, not competitively bid, no competition, a single source allowance of $475,000.
Maybe we should back up even a little bit more to explain.
Sure.
People are not aware. So I think what we're talking about is that there's a sewer line going along Keller Beach that the city is looking to replace and possibly move a block inland. So that would run along Western Drive, Grandview, Ocean Avenue, a couple other streets I don't know off the top of my head. And then they hire this engineering company to do a feasibility study of moving the contract inland. And I think that's what Rod's talking about, that the single source contract, they didn't look into anyone else to do it, that the city also didn't look into any other options. It just solely looked into moving the line inland instead of possibly repairing the line where it is and all of that. I think the city's proposal would be incredibly costly, of moving it inland, incredibly costly, would cause a lot of disruptions to residents and have a host of other problems. I think a lot of other people on the call have background that they can share, but I think that's like the very, very high level overview of what's going on.
I would add that the initial language of the contract was that they were looking into repairing, replacing, or moving the sewer line.
That would have been nice. And that's what they said, that they would look at all feasible alternatives. But the city council motion and approved memorandum essentially alleged within that memorandum that they considered it would be impossible to repair or replace the line in its present location because it's underwater, it's in the water. And apparently 63 years ago, we had better skills than we have now working in the water.
No, but there's much stricter state regulations, state environmental regulations. And I don't know the particulars, but I was at that meeting where they described it. And this was in response to a Baywatch, I believe, lawsuit.
It was Baykeepers.
Baykeepers lawsuit, that's what I meant.
And San Francisco Baykeepers had a multitude of issues with the city because of combined sewer stormwater overflows, that during stormwater events, the water was going outside of their sewage treatment plant on Canal beyond their capacity. There's no complaint from Baykeepers that this line was actually emitting from the Keller Beach sewer line, which runs from essentially close to the Long Wharf all the way to Brickyard Cove Road or Dornan Drive. So the issue was that it was actually getting ingress from sand, beach water going into the sewer line, which then was overflowing into the sanitary sewer, treatment plant and causing them to go beyond their allowed capacity. But the issue about this being new environmental regulations, I passed out last week a June 6th Regional Water Quality Control Board memorandum and ordinance that backdates and incorporates by reference a 2006 ordinance, which essentially says, in quotation marks, that this ordinance allows for repair or replacement in kind with negligible change in capacity of sewer lines, even those in the bay, that the Regional Water Quality Control Board supersedes any other environmental regulation and exempts it from any other environmental regulation, because the Regional Water Quality Control Board is unto itself an environmental regulator, and you can't have conflicting regulations that prevent them from managing theirs, which is to prevent sewer line emissions to the waters of the state. Yes.
At this point, I'm wondering exactly, I guess I'm asking you, Ron, what's the direction of the rest of this meeting? What is our purpose and what are we looking at particularly?
Okay, what we're looking at is where do we stand now? And do we have any say in what's happening? And also, what alternatives do we have? And the issues that I've had and people talking to me on the street on Western Drive is, if you have a sewer line that is now going to be a pump and treat from the collection on Western, on Ocean, on Grandview, you're going to have lift stations. You're going to have a pressurized line, which means you're going to have pumps. You're going to have electricity. You're going to have something that works even if there's a power outage. And otherwise, if there's a power outage, we're going to have a lot of trouble. We're going to have overflowing sewer mains that will spill out and dump to the bay uncontrolled, because we'll no longer be using
And they might dump
the
the houses too.
in the bay storm, sewer line collection system. Hey, Norm, do you have anything you want to add at this moment? And go off mute first.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, Norm Hanchey. I live on Ocean Avenue, and I'm a wastewater environmental resources engineer. And the one thing that I would maybe interject at this point is regarding the work by under the contract by Coastland, and they have several sub-consultants, one of which is a company called NCE. Their responsibility under the contract, and Rod, you must have a copy of it, but it's task 6.5. They're supposed to do an assessment of the permit requirements and the environmental regulations that would apply to any of the alternatives in the study, and to produce a memorandum that would then be handed over to or provided to Coastland for the purposes of then scoping and then evaluating the different alternatives. And it seems like Coastland, at least at the public meeting that a lot of us attended, was already, well, they made no mention of that, but had their own take on what they thought the regulations were, and had already moved forward to identify the alternatives and also to conclude what they called the slam dunk option. So I think one of the things that now that I guess it's been clarified that they've been given extra time to finish their work, Coastland has, that we should be able to see this memorandum that NCE was supposed to have produced for Coastland, and that should be a public, I think, reviewed by the public or made available to the public.
Thank you, Norm. But we haven't seen anything like that. Is Cesar on this call, or did he just?
Yeah, I'm on here.
Hi, Cesar.
Hey, good morning. Good day.
We need you as our voice at City Council.
So I am looking to bring a meeting together. Staff just responded, and they are open to meeting with the LUDRC and then the committee for the Keller Beach. And I just got an email from them a little bit ago. So they're looking for some dates possibly for next week or the week after, if you guys are available, so the staff can give you an update and then we can make any requests of them. in regards to any data you need or any information that was just mentioned that you might need to look at to review.
Okay, and have you seen all the information we've sent? Does this affect your opinion or influence your understanding of the situation at this time?
Oh, I know the situation. I've been involved in it for a couple months now. The group has been really great at updating me on all that's going on. We had that community meeting, I want to say back in March. I think it was
Right.
March. And there was more information there. And from there, from what I understand from staff, not a lot has changed. They're continuing to do their, the work that they were assigned to do for the contractor. They haven't changed the scope or anything, so they're still doing that, and they just needed to finish. And as of midnight yesterday, because that's when I was talking to the city manager after a city council meeting, I was telling her that I need this meeting to happen between staff so they can come out and give an update to all of you, so you can all be on the same page. And I understand that there's an extension of the agreement just for time purposes, not for payment. So we're not paying them anything more. It's just due to them not being able to finish their work due to the weather. But I want them to come and talk to you guys because I don't have everything. Staff only gives us just as much. And I try to really get as much as I can from them. But I think you guys are all the experts on this. And you might have a lot better questions for them and they can answer them for you. So I'm going to be looking to schedule that meeting. Again, they just responded to me just a little bit ago. They're asking for some dates between them and the group here to be able to meet.
Excuse me, Caesar, can you please describe, let us know who is staff?
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah.
Assumptions as to who they are. So who are you referring to exactly?
So this is Daniel Chavadia, who is the Public Works Director.
Okay.
Caesar, what is the new timeline for the completion and publication of this report now?
The publication, I don't know. I just know that their sort of agreement was extended due to unforeseen circumstances of the weather. But I don't have a timeline of the actual report. So that I'll have to get back to you, Graham.
Oh, okay, Caesar, thanks. If you could, that'd be great.
And
Yep,
Caesar, just one more question. I think we had talked about, I mean, at all of our meetings, including in the big group meeting we had, about exploring the possibility of hiring someone to consider other alternatives, right? Because the coastland contract is just determining the feasibility of this one alternative. Do you know if Public Works has made any progress on that? Because I think it would be good to have get that going as soon as possible. We don't want to be in a position where we only have the feasibility of one option and then city council is determining whether to proceed with that one option or not. We want to look at all options, including replacing, as Rod had mentioned earlier, and everything else.
Yeah,
And that
Carolina,
should be included in what Nora had pointed out is item 6, where a subcontractor is supposed to do that feasibility.
Sorry, Norm, was item 6 of what? Was that of the report?
That is task 6 of the contract. So of the scope of work, scope of services, all of the initial work was really done by biologists, done by geologists, the drilling, but there was one, the kind of pulling that all together in a summary memorandum, including the review of regulations and permitting issues, was to be handled by NCE. They're a local engineering firm here in Richmond. And that should be an interim product that should be available, I would think by now, because there's really nothing that the weather, would interfere with as far as determining the regulations. That it's not weather affected.
One question, Norm, on that is that, I think my understanding of the scope of that contract was that it was limited to the feasibility of the relocating the sewer line along that one corridor. So would that clause relate to the permits associated with the relocation, just with the relocation in that corridor, or would they also be looking at permits, at the feasibility of getting permits for other alternatives? I would assume the former, but just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, I think it was for, it wasn't that specific, and maybe it's ambiguous the way it was written. There was a map in, I think, in the contract or in the agreement somewhere that showed the alternative, the Western Drive, Ocean Drive route. And then it talked about at least 3 alternatives would be looked at, but there was some back and forth and not really clear. Were they just different ways of running the pipe in Ocean and Western, or was it really looking at alternatives to that route? And it was my understanding it was to include looking at repairing the pipe in its that's there. So lining the pipe or using some technique to make use of the pipe as it is, a replacement of the pipe, in the same location, or in some other location, that being Western and Ocean Drive. Those to me were the 3 alternatives that were, and I think that was kind of the discussion at the public meeting, but the contract language or the scope language is a little bit more ambiguous about there will be 3 alternatives.
And Norm, and I think I agree with you. The intent was to look at 3 options. One of them is leaving it as is. One of them is relocating it up 1 block. One of them was, I think, moving it up 2 blocks or something. But there are multiple options, not just moving it up and then figuring different streets. It was leaving it, moving it, and I forget what the third one was. But so there was other options there. And then Carolina, to go back to one of the questions you asked, again, this is as of midnight this morning when the city manager and I were chatting. She said there's a sort of a process. We have to let this contract kind of finish so a peer review could be done. And the peer review will look at everything they've done and making sure that anything they missed, and we can give them an additional scope of work in case they didn't look at all the options we want to be looked at. And we, meaning you guys as a community, if they're not looking at one of the options, that in that peer review, that option gets relooked at. And then they go back and look at all of the stuff that they did to make sure that they've dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, and checked everything off. So that's kind of the process. So that is in conversation. And I'm waiting for Public Works Director to kind of tell me when can we start this? When do we bring this forward to City Council? And also the City Council has the new ad hoc sewage committee, and that's comprised of 2 other council members and myself. And this is a big topic that I've brought up to the first meeting that we had about a week ago. So just so that you know, we're constantly working on this, and I'm making sure that this is not going to the wayside. And staff is definitely hearing us. We're just trying to figure out the different steps that need to take now that the actions from the previous council had this contract put in place. We're trying to figure out how do we amend it.
May I add a few
I've got
things?
Vivian and Jeff have their hands raised.
Okay, thanks. I just want to add a few things for the people who weren't at the meeting in March, and please correct me if I'm wrong about any of this. The third option that I believe was discussed and was in the contract was to maintain and repair the line where it is, or replace it so to repair it where it is, to replace it where it is, or to move it were the 3 options. The contract also, I believe, included quite a few other things like public meetings that were committed to but didn't happen other than the one. The general feeling of that meeting in March, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were a large number of people both participating and on Zoom. There seemed to be To me, I was shocked with the presentation and the perceived level of competence of the consultant that the city had hired. And it was a previous council that had hired the consultant. But they're eliminating all other possibilities but one and saying it was a slam dunk, saying they've dealt with permits before and it was just too hard to do the permits, so we're not going to go there. Several of the conclusions were quite shocking to me, and I don't know if others who were there would agree. But I think we've gotten into quite a mess with this particular contract, and I'm wondering where we go from here and what the alternatives are.
Hey, Jeff Ruderman. Take your mute off.
Well, thank you for Cesar for working until midnight on our behalf. That's very admirable. I'm just wondering, I'm not very happy with the alternative of digging up the street in front of my house and putting in a pumping station next to my house, and us having to have a generator in case the power goes off to figure out what to do. So I wasn't really happy with the slam dunk that the pipe couldn't be repaired. And I'm just wondering, aren't there places all over the world where there are pipelines under the water for oil or whatever else? And it's you know, sort of dumbfounding to me that this has been, you know, suggested that there's no way this could be done. I'm just pretty confident that lots of places run lots of things under the water, and it doesn't seem to be a you know, a problem that can't be solved. So I'd like to put my vote in for considering that as a major alternative, and not digging up my street and putting in a pumping station next to my house and having me run out in the middle of the night and deal with a generator when the power goes off.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Bonnie, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the fact that I think one of our questions also ought to be, who is the peer reviewer? Because
Norm's going to be the peer.
Norm, you're going to be the peer review person?
No, you know what I would, and I think I've suggested this before somewhere along the way. I've rarely worked on a project, and certainly one of this scale, where there isn't a technical advisory committee to basically independently review it, because the public works director and his staff are not going to be able to you know, to serve in that capacity. They administer the work, and they usually bring in consultants, and is usually, you know, and there may be kind of different levels or types of expertise represented, and it could be environmental as well as engineering. But that's very typical for a project, and especially one as sensitive and as complicated as this one. And it's, I mean, it's a $500,000 contract for all the different parties that are involved in this, and it certainly warrants some consideration of that. And I would ask Cesar maybe to bring that up with the wastewater, the council's wastewater committee, and to discuss that, whether, you know, they agree with that thought. And that would be, rather than wait till the end and then have someone, you know, come in and review and you know, something that's, you know, already gone so far, and that they be brought in, you know, earlier in the process, especially when the alternatives are described, and then the analysis that's done. Yeah, and also consideration of the regulatory information. So that's kind of my thought on peer review and technical advisory, work on a project like this. And just say, Jeff, in answer to your question about other alternatives, what we heard from Coastland's project manager there about, how would you replace a sewer now along the shoreline there? They created an alternative that where they talked about putting a road down there because they need to get trucks to all the manholes, and they need to raise the grade and do all this kind of stuff. That's not the only way to replace the sewer along the shoreline. In Australia, in Europe, they have technologies which they refer to as new sewers and smart sewers, where they reduce the number of manholes that are required. They use what they call our maintenance shafts that don't need trucks. They just need the ability to put TV equipment, closed circuit TV equipment in the lines, to put jetting equipment and so forth, which is just hoses. We don't need manholes because no men are climbing in the sewers on the along Keller Beach. So there are other technologies which I don't think Coastland maybe is familiar with or interested in developing as an alternative, but I think there's room to look at that.
I think it's very important as a group that land use also looks and sees who the peer reviewer is, because in the past, the city has been able to basically put away their responsibility by pointing to some other expert. And we need to know that these experts are not going to derail some of the issues that are of concern to our community.
Oftentimes, a committee formed for a project would include a community representative as well as technical experts.
Yes, that sounds good.
Yeah. So Graham's got his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Doesn't this get back to this whole idea of the up to 3 meetings they're meant to be holding with us to explain us what's happening? First of all, I question this wording, up to 3 meetings, and whether they're just saying, well, it's already had one and that's it, we didn't have to do any more. And secondly, isn't that the point in time when they should be able to explain to us who this reviewing committee is and talk about how that reviewing committee is going to be looking into the proposal from Coastland and the path forward?
I agree. And the other issue is what I heard in March in that meeting was not a conversation. It was a dictation to us of what they were going to do. And there was not any request for us to make a vote, have any input at all. I mean, that's how I heard it.
That's problematic.
Yeah. I mean, and what Bonnie was saying is frequently they'll hire somebody with a predisposed bias to get the answer they want and ignore everything else. And that's why we need to have, and I think we're volunteering that we'll put together some people to be on that sewer line committee before the city council, Cesar, so that we have a bias too. But I think it's a bias for the community and not just to have the largest construction project ever envisioned by the city of Richmond. And if it goes with a sewer line down Western and Ocean and Grandview, it will be hundreds of millions of dollars.
Also, Rod, just one other thing. Norm came up about the viability of the existing pipeline. Why don't we do a salinity study to see if the existing pipeline really is leaking? Is that something that the LUDRC can push?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think that the pipeline itself is broken. It might be connections from the laterals to the main. And it also, the issue is it's fats, oils and greases. Everybody that pours old fry oil down the line, that's the stuff that's clogging that sewer line. That happens not just in stuff in the bay, it happens all over. But that going around the point where Christine lives, the little point.
Cypress Point.
That they said they couldn't get any further than up to that area. So there needs to be a pipeline that has access for jetting that they didn't think of having at the time, or they just said that's as far as we can go. So it could be improved, and we don't have to replace in its space. We could do a replacement by putting one right close to it and abandon that pipeline.
We need to get, we should get the members. to
Okay,
talk.
Stephen, you don't raise your hand, Stephen, but I see you that you're
Yes.
getting.
Agitated.
Yeah, this
Jim,
Stephen.
I cannot get, this is Stephen Volker. Am I the right Stephen, Rod?
Well, no,
No,
but you can,
Stephen Parker.
Stephen Parker, then we'll go to Stephen Volker.
Thank you very much.
I'll let you go first, Stephen.
Okay, thank you. That's very polite, Stephen. I wanted to remind everybody that when we had the March presentation by Coastland, it was based on literature that was distributed to those present, and it stated as follows: the city has determined that the 63-year-old pipeline is in poor condition and cannot be maintained in its current location. So that told me from the get-go that in situ solutions were off the board. It goes on to say this conclusion was reached by the city due to inadequate access, pipeline structural defects, and the unlikelihood of obtaining the necessary environmental permits to repair or replace the pipeline in place. Well, I'm not aware actually that any of those three premises for the preemptive conclusion that in situ repair or resleeving was infeasible, that any of those premises are correct, and that was never examined. The push comes to shove, however, when you go to task 7, which is on page 8 of the literature, and that states pretty definitively, when we heard tonight about alternatives, and perhaps they included in situ alternatives, that's just incorrect. We were told in March, Coastland will develop up to 3 alternatives for the new sewer main within the proposed corridor, which this proposal makes quite clear is an upland proposal that will be on city streets. That's explained earlier. And it goes on to say, the 3 alternatives that may be considered for the new sewer main within the proposed corridor, remember that's the upland corridor, with combinations of pump stations, force mains, and gravity sewers that meet project criteria. So from the outset, the public was told that any alternative involving repair or replacement of the existing pipeline in situ was infeasible and had been rejected by the city already. And to my view, that preemptively forecloses consideration of a reasonable range of alternatives as the law clearly requires. And the first alternative is do no harm. If you can repair or replace in the existing location, that avoids a lot of the complications and expense and uncertainty and global warming impacts from the energy intensive proposal that was presented. Yet it was pushed to one side and declared preemptively that the city had already decided that that was not a feasible alternative. I question that statement. I have heard nothing for the last 3 months that suggests there's any basis for that statement. And I just wanted to clarify the record so people don't forget that was the premise for this proposal, that Coastland had been directed by a city decision to narrow its search for alternatives that would be upland and would not involve use of the existing pipeline in any way. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen, can I let you be displaced by Sally Tobin, who's had her hand up?
No, that's fine. That's
Thanks.
perfectly acceptable.
Sally,
Actually, I haven't had my hand up, but I did.
well, I'm
put in the
sorry.
chat-
There's-
I
it's-
did put in the chat.
Okay, it's somebody, it says Sally Tobin, it's One Pad Mini Full Use is your name.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. This is Ann Hoffman. I'm an 849 Ocean Avenue property owner for, I don't know, 35 or 40 years. Too many years. I mean, not too many to be in Point Richmond, but a long time ago. So that last comment and summary, lots of good comments and good thoughts. The last one sort of parallels what I was thinking, is that if we go back to the point at which the process seemed to have gone off the rails, it seems to be an issue with the city, and the fact that all three alternatives, including the in situ alternatives, weren't properly researched and documented, or if so, that information needs to be shared. And I think we need to push it all the way back to that point in time, and unravel that, because everything follows from that point in time. And if we can kind of focus a little bit more like a laser on where to start with pushing the process, it's probably more productive than if we kind of have all of our in the weeds details about things we hope won't come to be, as opposed to, wait a minute, let's look at the integrity of the process to date and make sure that it is included an honest review and analysis of these in situ issues. And I think we should just narrowly focus like lasers on that point. And maybe Cesar can help with that.
Yeah, I think we all agree with you. And the other thing is that we have to get an opportunity to be able to review their decisions and not let them go full tilt. But I think we have a new city council, and we also have a whole rebuild of the engineering department for the city of Richmond. So the people that made those decisions are no longer the city engineer, the staff of the city engineer. There's been essentially a purge and replacement. So that's one of the things that, the people we're dealing with now aren't the people that made that decision.
Which is great, because they don't have to defend it.
Yes. Okay, Stephen Parker, I think,
Yeah.
are you going to speak?
Right. So this is Stephen Parker. I guess my primary concern is, where are we if we're having these discussions and it's going on and on? Where are we with regards to the measurement of the sewer pipe, with regards to how healthy is the water around the sewer pipe? Are we creating a problem that is getting larger and larger as we're having these discussions? Is Coastland actually doing any testing to tell us where test results were the day that they showed up, and 2 months later, 3 months later, 6 months later, now that we're almost in July? It would be nice to know, are we having a problem that's growing while we're having discussions, or do we have something that's actually not a problem at all? But I think we need that data, and I'm not sure that that's been collected.
There's supposed to be reports. The newest report of June 6th essentially went back to a 2016 report, which requires them to do monitoring and maintenance and publishing of water quality assessments and any leaks and spills. And I went and looked at the San Francisco Baykeepers website today. And in fact, I've actually signed up to get their newsletter. And the only thing they had regarding Keller Beach was it was one of the safer places to swim on the San Francisco Bay. So it wasn't, and the only times it had negative was actually when there were oil leaks from the Chevron Long Wharf or from Chevron, not from any sewer system. So the issue that's the Baykeepers had with the city of Richmond's wastewater treatment plant was that because water came into the sewer line and then overwhelmed the sewage treatment plant, it was pumping out untreated waste downstream of this system. It wasn't that it was leaking, going outward from the
Mhm.
Keller Beach sewer line. I think it was leaking going inward from Keller Beach. And that's all I know.
So I think that's a good idea, what Stephen's saying, and it's probably something as a group, as the land use group, we need to be able to put down the community concerns that we want to present in a letter to the staff and the company that is involved in this. So I think that as a board, as a group that is, you know, in charge of making this communication, we're going to have to, and I'm thinking mostly of you, Charmaine, that we can get all this, you know, organized so that we can count the things that people have mentioned and be sure to inform the city of our concerns.
So that was one set of concerns. And the next one is, I wasn't sure if Coastland had said that the three options were all available for permit and approval by the various agencies. I, for some reason, thought that they had come to the conclusion there would not be permits available for in situ repairs. And I'm not sure if that's correct or not.
That's what they said, but I'm disagreeing with that.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay, we've got Carolina DeBarros and then Vivian. Carolina?
Yeah, so just to answer or to kind of build on the prior comment about communicating this to the city. So before kind of, as soon as we found out about all of this, a group of us, many of whom are here, kind of started asking the city these questions months and months ago. We have a list that we can share with the LUDRC, and I think some of you might have already seen it because I've been circulating everything we sent to the city to the full kind of email list we have. We've asked all these things. We've raised the point that the contract is really only looking at an alternative along the corridor, and the city must look at other alternatives. At our last meeting in March, Norm brought up the fact that the city should test the water and should make sure that there is an issue. Like, these are all points that we've brought up for months. And Cesar, you know this too, right? We've been bringing it all up for months and months and months, and we have not gotten a response. We were hoping that we were going to get initial responses at the meeting with Coastland. Coastland came completely unprepared, even though we sent them a list of questions ahead of time. Public Works was also not very prepared to answer our questions. We were hoping to have a follow-up meeting with them, the whole community, where they could answer the initial batch of questions in addition to the other questions that were raised in the meeting in March, and that hasn't been scheduled yet. And I'm just getting a little worried, right? Because I think, as people have noted, months have gone by and we're kind of still in the same position where we're debating whether anything else is being looked at. And I truly don't think anything else, any other alternative is being looked at. And we're just waiting for Coastland to finish this review of this one alternative without moving on everything else. And Cesar, I really defer to you on how we approach this, or the rest of the community, but it's been months, and the city has known of just about everything that's been raised in this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. Vivian?
I'll just echo everything that the previous speakers have said and add one little piece that I found quite shocking at the March meeting, was that the one consultant that the city has hired to deal with the sewer made the statement repeatedly that they're unable to inspect or maintain a very large percentage of the sewer system. And I found that quite disturbing, and I'm wondering, I would think that there are many possible ways to inspect and maintain the existing system, and to just completely throw away that possibility and look at something that might be built many, many years from now and not take a close look at what's happening with the system right now and deal with any problems that might be coming up during that time seems very irresponsible. So I'd like to be sure to add that to our list of
Okay,
concerns.
thanks. Okay, go to one pad mini full use. No, they're there. You have your hand up, one pad mini full. Do you still want it up? Okay, moving on to Graham.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, no, my hand is down. I'll take it down.
Okay, Graham.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Look, I'd just like to echo what Carolina's just said. We've been talking about this for months. And as far as we can tell, the people most intimately affected by this, nothing's happened. You know, we're just sort of drifting here. And Cesar, that's the reason why I'm pressing. We need, if everybody's sitting on their rear ends waiting for Coastland to come up with this report, we need to have a deadline when we're going to be able to see it. And they should be pressed to produce this as quickly as possible. They've been paid a lot of money to come up with, frankly, a pretty slapdash sort of interim report. And we have given them all of our concerns. Now, I think what we should be looking at is, are these concerns going to be addressed? And the sooner we can get the answer to that, we can then move forward. So, you know, I earnestly suggest that you try and get a deadline out of these guys as to when we're going to get this report.
And I'd like, before we get the deadline of the full report, I'd like to see that item 10 review that Norm brought up before. Yeah, and I got from Mountcastle says, ditto to Carolina. I'd like to add that it sounds like they're just going to ignore us. And the thing we all have to understand is our taxes are paying for all this. Our property taxes are going to get hit for this. And I think we should be able to have a say with how the city council administers and manages a huge project.
Maybe.
If the coastline report isn't going to address the keeping the pipeline in place, is that our main goal, to see it? If it doesn't even go down the road we want to go down, isn't our main goal something else, to see whatever it was that made the determination to preclude the options to leave it in place and repair it in place or replace it in place?
I agree. We need to have an enforced peer review that the city council demands of the engineering department for public works. That we need a peer review. And if we see potholes in their report or total oversights and missed issues, then it needs to be corrected. And that normally would have to be corrected at the cost of coastline. You can't do a half-assed job and get paid full price.
I thought
Carolina?
earlier we said that coastline's contract only at the city's direction said to not pursue anything except the relocation. So that doesn't put the onus of that
I kind
decision
of
on them.
agree.
The onus of the decision would be on the city council in their direction of their contract.
I agree.
Um,
That's why.
I just want to make sure we're barking up the right tree.
Well, that's why we've got a city council member present at this meeting right now. Okay, Carolina? You want to
Yeah,
do something?
just to build on that. So I think going back to the origin of this contract, right before there was a contract, there was a report, a CCTV footage report. So Coastland was initially hired to run cameras down the pipe and review that, and because they did that, for some reason the city thought that they were the best qualified to do the feasibility study, but that's a whole other issue. But in that initial report of the CCTV footage, the Coastland states that, you know, there are issues with the pipeline. It looks like it is, you know, deteriorated. They noted that they weren't able to access certain points. And in that report, they go on to say that there are two options. There's an option of repairing the pipeline, but with the sleeve and all of the stuff that I know nothing about, I'm not an engineer. And then the second option was the option of moving it inland. They said to both options in that report, they said it's going to be costly, that it was going to be difficult, and all of that. Permits would be an issue. And then there's, like, for some reason, a gap between that report and the contract. And I think that's what we need to get at. Somewhere along the line, the Coastland was just hired to look at option number 2. In the March meeting, we questioned why that was the case. And the coastline engineer said, as a matter of fact, that it would be impossible to get permits. So they didn't even consider leaving the pipeline where it is. I'm not sure like how much the city was involved in that discussion and how much the city pressed them on that. It seems like not very much, but the engineer said, as a matter of fact. Richard, my husband, asked at the meeting, so do you have like a lawyer's like memorandum explaining why it would be impossible to get permits? And the coastline engineer said, no, we have no opinion from a lawyer. We just think it's impossible. So therefore, we're not even looking at this, and moving it inland is slam dunk. So I totally agree. I think we need to, and it's what we've been trying to do, get Public Works to hire someone else to look at the other alternatives, whether it's repairing it where it is, whether it's replacing it along where it is, whether it's another route. I don't know. I think Norm has also mentioned, other people have mentioned that there are a couple of houses that are currently connected to the Keller Beach pipeline that could easily be connected to the gravity line on the other side of Golden Gate, and that would be like an immediate step that we could take. There are all these other possibilities that no one's looking at. For whatever reason, between the report and the contract, it was narrowed to this narrow scope of moving it inland, and period. And we just don't, we have no information on that.
Yeah, so that gap seems to be the place we want to drill down on between those two events.
Right. You want to say something?
Yeah, I think, you know, as the committee people, we need to also figure out that at some level, talking about all of these possibilities and the things they haven't done, etc. We also, as a group, and perhaps this, the board here is helpful in this, we need to create a complete paper trail, because in the end, the city will run over us unless we do something about that. And we need a paper trail that's going to withstand legal review. And we need to be able to show at some level that, you know, concerns and processes were not followed as should be.
Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, Jan. You're on mute, Jan.
It just would be super helpful if there's some way of finding, is a permit possible or isn't it? Like, it seems like somebody would know, there might be some way to actually address that. And that seems like that's one of the cruxes of the matter here.
You mind if I say something on your computer?
Please.
Oh, say.
Okay, you guys, I just think that like we have one, first of all, thank you, Carolina and Rod and Norm and everybody for all of your commentary. I think it's just, my name is Keith Kober. I live at 762 Ocean Avenue. I've been in the Point for about 15 minutes. We bought in 2020. So I just think we have one contractor with one idea. We all deserve so much better than that. And the city council should recognize that, like, immediately. Like, why aren't we talking to some other contract or some other vendor to give us better ideas or other ideas at the minimum? It just seems like this has all gone so quickly, and well, it's gone so slowly after March, where everybody, it seemed like, oh, it's only going to affect 72 homeowners. How condescending can you be?
Part of the issue may be if the engineering department and Public Works has had a big rollover, then it's probably partly a function of new staff and them setting priorities and the ball having been dropped in the transition and all those kinds of things, which can create a vacuum that can be useful for us.
And I think that, yeah, that's
Not
a
necessarily
very,
useful.
go ahead, sorry. Jump in, Rod. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think we need, as Bonnie said, we'll put the facts in writing. I'll get back to Graham and Carolina. I think you have set out stuff, and we'll put something, we'll run it through a couple times to make sure that we've got it all captured. And obviously we really appreciate Cesar stepping in and taking an active role in this. I've got Sally and Jan are still got their hands up. So Jan first, then Sally.
Oh, I was just sort of responding, I forgot his name, I'm sorry. That like it was in hearing all this, it's very unclear like who who in the city or how that decision got made in the city before they hired Coastline. Because Coastline,
No.
you know, and
Yeah,
and
there's a, yeah,
and who did they talk, how was it determined that a permit's impossible and that it's not Coastline was given this job already decided? So we've alluded to that, but I just think that anyway, that's what needs to be addressed.
thank you. And then I want to wrap this up too. Sally?
Okay, I'll keep it really short. I just wanted to make the comment that I think the idea that some people have mentioned of more monitoring of the water off our shoreline would be a really good idea. I think Keller Beach is monitored routinely because it's a swimming spot, but I've never seen a monitoring sample taken between the Long Wharf and Grandview, for instance, and that may be true further on down. And you know, because the outlets into the bay are going to be uneven depending on the extent of the leakage. And I'm also seeing a lot more kind of foamy buildup on the water, which could be possibly more protein, or it could be people's laundry detergent. So it would be great to have more monitoring and more data on that. Thanks.
Okay,
That's what I'm thinking.
yes. Anybody else here? Mark is raising his hand by his hand, but Mark Adams?
Hi there. I apologize for coming a little late to the party here. You, Norm, and myself have done a lot of feasibility studies in our career on environmental issues. I haven't read the report or the proposal or anything like that, but could you just briefly tell me whether this is set up as a feasibility study, meaning that all alternatives needed to be put into a matrix, analyzed as to the, you know, the characteristics of whether it's possible, whether it's affordable, whether it will be effective? It sounds like that has not been done.
I agree. That's my opinion also. And it appears that they've spouted facts that are unsupported with reality. And that's all I can say today, but that's going to be in our report.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to help any way I can.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, we have anybody else raising their, Richard, it's Richard's iPad. And you're on mute, so you got to go off mute before we can hear you.
You're still on mute.
You're still on mute, Richard. Okay, Richard, if you're on mute, we can't hear you. Do you know that?
Okay, forget it.
Okay, we're going to go to Cesar. Richard won't get off.
There we go.
Okay.
You know, I joined the meeting very late because I only just got home, so I'm only just hearing the last 10 minutes or so. So I don't really have anything to add other than, you know, I'm obviously very interested.
Thank you. Okay, Cesar.
Thank you, Rod, and thank you everyone for being here tonight and your comments. I have taken notes. I've been emailing staff as we're in this meeting. One thing that I can do, right, as I'm learning the process, right, undoing what previous council members did last year is a little bit more difficult. It's not as easy. But what we can do is put an agenda item together to give new direction to staff. Now, if we can work on this together, so I've emailed staff so that we can have a sit-down meeting between them and myself for a quick touch base, and then having a meeting with staff. And when I say staff, it's Public Works, potentially the consultant, or it might just be Public Works and this group and myself. But ultimately, maybe what we are going to need is an agenda item to give new direction to staff to say, start looking for that second opinion, right? That peer review, because we'll have to go hire a company that's going to give us that peer review. So they'll have to go through a whole RFP And if what I'm hearing today, we don't want to wait until this particular findings are completed, which could take a couple more months. If we want to start looking at the other option now, we definitely can. We'll just need to have an agenda item that gets put up and then it gets sent over to for staff for new direction. Assuming that I will get my votes with my council members, I'll put it on the consent calendar.
Okay.
But maybe we can work together on what that language is,
Yes.
so that we can give new direction to staff. That's
Thank
one way to be able to get this train flowing a lot faster. Is what I'm learning. So maybe we're going to work on that together.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the meeting. I think we've got. Is there anything else on our land use that has anything to say? And this whole meeting's been recorded, so that's good information too. Anybody on land use? David, Charmaine, Stephen?
Yeah, I will complete the notes and talk to you about it, Rod, and see what I can help you with in order to make a document if we need a document.
Great. David?
Yeah, I just wanted to second something that a lot of people have said. We have been presented with what appears to be a key assumption that the only alternative worth considering is undergrounding under the streets rather than replacing the existing line. And, given the quality of the evidence that we've been presented with, you might as well have read that on Twitter. So I think we need to ask where that assumption came from and see what supports it, because everything, if that isn't supportable, then of necessity we have to open up the other options.
Yep.
Correct. That will be incorporated in what we're saying.
And is our
Good.
group supposed to do anything tonight?
Hey, Rod, or anybody else?
That's Mark.
Yes, the previous city council or agency Zoom meeting that you're referring to, is that reviewable, recorded, available online anywhere?
The March 22nd meeting?
Correct.
I believe it is.
Okay.
How we find that, I don't know.
I
But
tried.
believe it was recorded.
And I'm wondering.
I don't think that meeting was recorded. No, it was a couple months ago and I don't remember, but I don't think it was recorded.
I think it was, Cesar. I think we determined that it was going to be. I don't know how good the quality of the audio is or who has that recording. I know that there were some issues with the Zoom, but I'm pretty sure the city told us that they were going to record it.
Okay.
So
Let me check with Trina then. I think she's gonna help me set it up. So I'll check with our staff to check.
Thank you.
And the only thing I'm wondering is, does our land use committee tonight have to put forth any kind of motion at all around this meeting? Because this was a regular land use meeting and we usually do have some kind of motion about what's going to happen next. So do the members of land use want to weigh in here?
Well, I'll make a motion that we prepare a report in coordination with our city council member Cesar that goes and the community members that goes to city council through Cesar to make a memorandum that will incorporate what we brought up today.
Does that sound good to everybody? Stephen and I don't know if Jane's here still.
I don't know that I fully got what you're putting in the memorandum, Rod.
Yeah, that we will be preparing a request to city council to make a decision that will bring in essentially third-party review
of
the alternatives.
And
and bring up the issues that we have discussed
Yeah,
tonight.
I think that the note that, well, the probably rather lengthy letter that land use will end up putting out is a combination of what land use, has heard and what the community has said and what the concerns are, and perhaps some kind of accurate timeline of what actually has occurred and what we have concerns about.
Graham?
Yeah, could we also just incorporate there a couple of sentences reverting to the fact that we have been pressing the city council for 4 or 5 months with our list of questions that needed to be addressed, and we would like those to be responded to as well?
We'll incorporate those questions in this correspondence.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Vivian has something.
the meeting, the
Yeah.
members, do the members have we got Charmaine, have you gotten enough of a motion that you could write up and we can all say yay or nay, the land use
Yes.
members?
Yes.
Okay.
She's going to read it out to us now.
Oh, you want me to read this what I wrote?
Kinda, yeah.
I will have to rewrite it officially, but it's something like, we will be preparing the motion is to prepare a request to city council to make a decision to bring in third-party review and bring up all of the issues.
I'm
that
running
we
it
have
and I'm
discussed.
scared to death to start our other meeting because I don't know what that's going to do to the LURDC meeting.
Okay, well, we're almost done with our meeting, Buzz.
Buzz, we're almost done.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Rod?
Any opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.
Well, that was my fear.
Rod?
Now we can start the next meeting.
Hey, Rod.
Rod
Yes.
started to wrap it up 15 minutes ago, so.
Yeah, we have to end this meeting.
We have to end this meeting because they've got.
I just wanted to give you the deadlines really quickly. So
Yep.
I'm hoping
Okay.
that I can meet with whoever can help me write the staff report. I want to make sure that I
And this
capture
is
exactly
a
what
good-
you're looking for.
You bet, and it's a good reason that we.
As
should
we
have
can
these
hear
things.
your telephone conversation.
You will be in touch.
No, I understand. I'm just, no, for,
Thank you.
no,
All right,
it's for
Okay,
future
thanks.
reference.
Yeah, we gotta let the next meeting
Okay.
begin.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, everyone.
no,
Thank
not
you
at all.
guys for
Not at
setting
all.
this up
Okay,
too.
okay. Yep, thank you.
Buzz, you can end the meeting and
Oh.
start the other one.